about what Elbaf might be like. And so this might sound kind of like an uninteresting video at first, but I think it might be more interesting than you expect. But before we get into the video, I do want to let you guys know again about my Discord. If you don't know what it is or if you want to check it out, link for that is in the description. But, so one of the awesome things about One Piece, in my opinion, what really defines it and separates it from other shows is the adventure aspect of it. It's one of the strongest points of the entire series. Every place that the Straw Hats visit is in some way amazing. I think a lot of people watch One Piece, myself included, to see how Luffy progresses and face new challenges and increase his reputation or bounty in the world. This is something that I love. But I also love seeing Luffy visit all of these new places and finding out what they are like. But I have to say, the places that I like the most are the ones that are the most fantastic. We're talking about Skypiea. Whenever the One Piece hit the Skypiea arc and they went up the Knockup Stream to the Sky Islands, oh my god, guys, I just fell in love with it. If you guys don't know, One Piece is kind of similar to Gulliver's Travels in the sense, one of my favorite books growing up. So then when the Straw Hats visited Zoe and Fishman Island, or when the Straw Hats visited Water 7, man, these are some of my favorite islands. And I think that we should expect something similar to this when the Straw Hats visit Elbaf. That we should expect it to be very fantastic. If ever I were to join the Straw Hat crew, my role would certainly be to document what it is that the Straw Hats accomplish and where it is that they go and what all these places are like, and write about it. That is what I would do, because it's just awesome. Anyway, guys, going back to Elbaf. Elbaf written backwards is Fable. And so we've seen little bits of Elbaf in Big Mom's flashback, but I think that for sure Oda is holding back on really giving us a full picture of the island itself. And I mean, this is extremely obvious, because when we saw Elbaf, right, there's this giant structure we presume to be a giant tree that Oda is for sure not showing us fully. It's just a little teaser, but a little teaser coupled with things that we know about Elbaf and the giants themselves, which could help us potentially speculate what Elbaf might be like and what might be special about it aside from just this giant tree. Anyway, what I'm about to speculate has probably been speculated before, just based on how it is that you could come up with this. But I think that it would be very interesting to share. And so, guys, if you've followed any of my Elbaf speculations, I know it's been a while, but essentially the giants are inspired from, and in many ways related to, Norse mythology. And so from this point, I and others speculate that this giant tree, we presume it's a tree, it looks like a tree anyway, in Elbaf that Oda is refusing to show us directly, is the One Piece equivalent of the tree from Norse mythology called Yggdrasil, or otherwise known as the World Tree. Now, a lot of people speculate that it could be Treasure Tree Adam or some other amazing tree, and this could definitely be true. Like, this tree could be both a special tree within the One Piece world, but sort of inspired for, and so the reason why it's on Elbaf is because of the giant's relationship with Norse mythology. All that's really important is that there's some connection to this tree, potentially, with Yggdrasil. And so the other speculation in which I've been arguing for is that this tree might also have some connection to Giant Jack from Skypiea. So if you don't remember, Giant Jack was the beanstalk-like plant, essentially, that was holding up Jaya within the Sky Islands. And without getting into the details of the theory itself, essentially it's kind of strange that there is this giant beanstalk within the Sky Islands, and you kind of suspect that, being a large plant that it is, that it might have its base rooted in some way to the actual blue sea. And so there's several ways that it could work. This giant tree could actually be a giant beanstalk that's branches extend very far and wide out into the sky within the Sky Islands, or it's possible that Giant Jack, the beanstalk itself, are vines that sort of wrap around this giant tree. I don't consider the specificities overly important, but the reason that I speculate this and others speculate this, like way back in the day, is that this could relate to the fable Jack and the Giant Beanstalk, where this kid Jack climbs up a giant beanstalk, and at the top in the sky live the giants. So there's several things that I want to say and I want to speculate. So first off, if the giants potentially are, if Elbaf is in any way related to Jack and the Giant Beanstalk, then you would expect that there to be some giants that would actually live at the top of this tree, which could be related to Norse mythology, it being Yggdrasil. But we've actually seen Elbaf, and we know for sure that at least some of the giants don't actually live at the top of this structure or this tree. They live at the base. We can see this with, the Elbaf giants themselves, and where Big Mom was specifically raised for some time in her past with Mother Carmel. And so my thoughts are that it seems really reasonable to me that perhaps there's some giants who live at the top are actually maybe the royalty of the giants. Whereas your average common folk giant wouldn't live at the top, they would live at the base. And so I'm not going to take the time to explain all of my thoughts and all my explanations for all of these various connections in this video. If you guys are really curious as to all more specifics about these particular speculations, I will include links in the description to my other Elbaf theories. What I really want to focus on now is what Elbaf might be like. If you believe, like I do, that there might be some giants that live at the top of this tree, and some that live at the bottom of this tree, a very interesting parallel arises, and this relates again to Yggdrasil. Now, Yggdrasil is known as the World Tree, and the World Tree essentially houses what's called in Norse mythology the 9 realms. If you've been watching any Marvel movies recently, and specifically been watching Thor, you've undoubtedly heard about the 9 realms. And so, what the 9 realms are is basically the various places in which the different kinds of beings within the Norse cosmos can be found. If you consider the world tree to be the universe, then there are 9 distinct worlds within the universe, which can be found in either the branches or the roots of this great universe tree, or the world tree, Yggdrasil. And each of these worlds are home to very unique and distinct groups of entities, or people, whatever you want to call them. The most famous of which, specifically again if you've been watching Thor, is called Asgard, or the Realm of Gods. And this is extremely interesting to me, given this giant tree which seems to be located in Elbaf, and the possibility that perhaps some giants live at the top of this tree, then it's possible that their home might be called something along the lines of Asgard, the royalty that live at the top of this tree, related to the Asgardian gods. And then another potential connection may arise. If we assume that giants live at the top, we know for sure that giants live at the bottom, that this would be the giants of Elbaf, and one of the 9 realms is called Jotunheim, the land of giants. Now, I would like to make something very clear here. I think that Elbaf, the island of Elbaf where this tree seems to be growing, and even on this tree itself, only giants live there. So in the Norse mythology, right, they had a world of elves and a world of humans, but I think that all the various groups that might live on Elbaf are actually giants. But I think that there may be several, maybe even 9 giant kingdoms. So essentially, guys, what I'm speculating is that there will be 9 giant kingdoms located in various places, and that this island where we find Elbaf is not actually Elbaf. Elbaf was merely the part of this island that we got to see, which is why we only got a very brief, not a full picture of it. That Elbaf itself is split into various worlds or realms, where different groups of giants that are philosophically and culturally distinct from each other control each area. A lot of people, I think, get confused by this, but not all giants are giants of Elbaf. We know this for a fact, because back during Nico Robin's flashback, we got to meet Jaguar D. Saul. Saul stated himself that he is not a giant of Elbaf. He calls the giants of Elbaf barbaric. And I think this tells us 2 things. First of all, obviously, there must be other places and other kingdoms of giants. And number 2, that Jaguar D. Saul is personally familiar with the tendencies of these specific giants who hail from Elbaf. Perhaps suggesting that although Saul may not have grown up in Elbaf, might have grown up somewhere maybe nearby. Here I want to draw you an illustration about how I think that Elbaf is laid out, with several different kingdoms located on the island itself, which I do not think is actually called Elbaf. I think Elbaf is only a portion of this great island. And then obviously you have this great structure, which we presume to be a tree, where there are also several different kingdoms that live both in the middle and on top of this great tree. Guys, I just really love this idea. Aside from it just sounding cool, it just seems like something Oda would do. It allows him to create a magical place such as he's done so often in the past. Each of these 9 realms are distinctly different to each other based on literature, and Oda can use that to, do amazing things. Like, for instance, in the mountains, you have the ice giants, or, next to a volcano, you have the fire giants. We've already seen in the One Piece world that there are several giants that are just so much smaller than others. Well, there's a realm in Norse mythology for dwarves, so maybe in One Piece this would be the realm of the dwarf giants. And I'm also always talking about parallels between pre and post timeskip, and in the pre-timeskip we had an archipelago, or basically a series of connected islands that are very close to each other. It's possible that this same concept works for the race of giants, that Elbaf is in fact its own actual island, but it's also very near several other islands that are all interconnected by this great tree. And what we actually see in Elbaf is merely a great root of this tree. But anyway, guys, I just really wanted to share this thoughts and make this video because I just think that it's damn cool to think about what Elbaf could be like with potentially 9 various kingdoms or realms, the island itself being so large that there's various geographic differences between the parts of it where you find these kingdoms that make each part unique, sort of like Punk Hazard, but on a whole nother scale with this giant tree, which furthers this, but there's also people living on the tree. I love it. Straight up, I love it. And I wanted to share it. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Just let me know. Like the video if you like the video. Dislike the video if you dislike the video. Subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.